Oh, hi, I'm the True Gamer, giving off my vast knowledge so you may understand games a bit better. So, last time we did Fable. Well, it's not in my wheelhouse, it is an RPG, so I decided to look at it. Today, we're looking at MindJack. Yeah, so why this game? MindJack is a game that is only mostly known for, well, Angry Joe's review of the game that can just really state the obvious that it's a truly bad game. Which, oddly enough, I still think it is, but for weirdly different reasons. We'll get into that in the review.
So, what is this game? Well, it was a third-person shooter in the PS3 era, or 7th generation, which, if you don't remember, I really don't blame you. It was a very dull generation, with a lot of third-person shooters, like, way too many. Like, I could point to a random assortment of games from that generation, and yeah, it's most likely a shooter. In any case, it was released by Feel Plus. This is not a known company. In fact, the only notable thing that they made, or at least helped make, was Lost Odyssey. I swear on my life, that game and the company pops up way too much in these videos. It's weird. And that's really one of the only big things they've really made. It's not helped that they made the Grudge game for the Wii, yeah, that terrible game, and the No More Heroes Lost Paradise version of the game, which ironically is not a bad remake, just a weird oddity with some weird graphics, but another time. And actually, with more research, I found out they made the Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles arcade shooter. My point is, the developers is an oddity and is just forgotten by most people and was just reabsorbed into a queue, but another time. But in any case, let's actually begin the review for MindJack. So the game begins with a tutorial that is just awful because it has a lot of ear-grating white noise that it really didn't need. I'll talk about the gameplay in a bit because of something later. Also, we're just going to mention this now. But no, that's just how the game runs. I don't know why it's acting like this when I know for a fact that my PS3 can handle way more graphically intense games than this. In fact, this game can only run on 720p. So I know for a fact that it can do better because I have played so many Muso hours on this PS3. We play as Jim, an agent of FIA. What's that? I'm not entirely sure. It's weird, like, nothing about this plot is ever explained, though that doesn't mean the plot is hard to understand. I know, those sound like weirdly contradictory, which it really isn't. You get what is happening, but never as to why it is, as it seems to be unable to actually explain the details of it. Like the FIA thing. The only thing I ever found out about it is that there's a government group in Pakistan that is called the FIA, and I really doubt that's what this game is using it. In fact, I'm not even sure where they are. So, I just raise my hands up and just say whatever. Not that it matters either way. Jim is on watch for someone named Rebecca, who is an activist, I guess? Okay, so the game doesn't explain, but even then, that last part is not true, as we will continue on to find out. Anyway, he is told to follow her, which he doesn't, and just straight up snaps the guy's neck.
I know this sounds weird what I'm about to say, but it's weird that I have to mention it. That guy we just snapped? Yeah, he's alive. I don't know how you could survive being your snack being snapped. Okay, I didn't actually think I could crack it that way, but hey. My point is that being, he should be totally dead. The way you use that move is to kill someone.
He tries to take her, and suddenly a bunch of guys come in and attack them, where they must now defend themselves, and well, stuff happens. So okay, this is where the shooting begins, and in terms of gameplay, it's as basic as it sounds. Like, it just has a basic cover-based mechanic shooter. Like, I have nothing to say about it because it is so basic, you know what it is. And I can't offer much than it's okay-ish. Plus with the small amounts of units and weapons, which honestly just makes the game feel very bare bones, and meaning that you're just going to see the same things over and over again, which just makes the game very boring. And it is really not helped with how garbage the game runs. Like, when I say it runs terribly, I mean that with impunity. I swear on my life, they cannot handle anything you do. Like, if they have to get somewhere, they will go there first, even if they get shot. My point is that the game has no real way of really challenging you. In fact, the game is quite easy as long as you're paying attention. And very much like Fable, it doesn't really evolve, and the only thing that makes the gameplay interesting is that the game has the MindJack ability. MindJack adds an interesting angle to fights, as you could take over, well, a foe's body or just some random civilian's body, which adds a bit of chaos to the battle, as foes are unable to handle both sides and you could just flank them, in which it could allow for some interesting ideas, but the problem is the game can barely handle it. As I keep mentioning, the game can barely function as is. I fear the game would crash on multiple occasions. And it sort of did. Well, that was actually because of a thunderstorm, and was in fact planning to scrap this entire review after I just lost an hour of footage. Which actually, one of the few benefits of this game is that each section is actually chapter based, meaning that you can play any chapter whenever you want.
Yeah, let's actually go into that now. The original review wasn't going to be for MindJack. No, it was going to be for Legendary. The only reason why I didn't do this one is because it's so legendarily bad. For one reason. I can't save in this game. You need to be online to save it, and the servers are shut down, meaning, nope, you can't frickin' play it. I don't get it. I really genuinely don't get that.
I also forgot to mention this because I really didn't need to mention it. There's also a leveling system. Yes, there is a leveling system in this game, and really you can entirely ignore it. Like, you don't need it at all. Weirdly enough, it has a difficulty select, which is actually the rules, which you only gain after leveling up, and you can't actually change the difficulty until you beat the game, which is really stupid. I've never understood this. Just let us access those harder difficulties immediately so that way we can enjoy them. Why lock it behind just beating the game? But getting back on track, the game was not fun after the original burst of its newness. Like, the game can't handle the fact that you are, by and large, able to bring so many units onto your side, thus the slowdown, and I can't apologize for it enough, since I hate it more than you will ever know. It makes the game unbearable. And it's just like, why? This game was released in 2011, many years into the console's lifespan, so it should have been fine. And it's not like the game is pushing the hardware to its limit. I mean, like, it looks fine enough for a 7th generation game, and like I just stated, it only runs at 720p, meaning that it's just meh. And really the only good thing I can say about how it looked is that, unlike most shooters, which makes it not fucking brown, it's just mostly gray and blue. There's also the music. Like, I tried to listen to the soundtrack, it's just dull, which we need to actually talk about a little more.
Okay, this is something weird that I have to kind of mention, because I didn't know it at the time, and while trying to find the soundtrack, which you can only find on iTunes for some reason. I don't know why it's on iTunes, but you can't find it anywhere else. Yeah, I mean, this thing is a piece of garbage, but you know it's only weird because you know who made this? It was made by this guy, who did the soundtrack for both. I don't know who made the Brave Fencer Musashi soundtrack, and a bunch of other games you've heard of on the screen. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but because this game's so boring that I am literally forgetting shit. That is how boring this game is.
It's just, you would think it would be at least decent and not this droning nothing that has really no feel to it. Which is, again, not helped with the gameplay being just awful. Like, to go back to the AI again, because that AI is just horrible. Like, I saw it on multiple occasions shooting at nothing or shooting at the ground. Like, what are they doing? It's just like, how is it this badly designed? This is where I gotta mention something about myself. I hate boring games. If you're wondering about the difference between the two, a bad game is something that is poorly designed and can lead to frustration, but you can still see there's a good idea in it that can be used for something later. While a boring game is just unable to make you feel anything and it just leaves you dead inside, which I hate the absolute most. This game is just boring because it does nothing, and any interesting aspect about it just fails to be a thing.
So if you've been noticing, I've been talking about how really boring the game is and how little anything matters. So I'm going to try to explain the plot, but be clear about this, even my understanding is very vague. Because nothing is truly explained. So here is my rough assumptions about the story.
So after a bit, you're trying to find someone who is important and has info on Narcos, who are involved with the death of people for, I don't know, they're also the people chasing you and are causing it, and trying to do something. After some more stuff, they sneak into a facility to find more bodies and also robot monkeys. I really don't get why they needed that, but whatever. We also learn here that she's also an FIA agent herself, which is just like, why were we watching her? As it doesn't really matter at all, since the plot doesn't really go on to explain what's the deal with that, as we are attacked by a cyber gorilla, which weirdly enough, you can find one before this and just use it, which I have no idea why it's here to begin with. I mean, like, this is just the 4th level. During this fight, you also meet Lyle, an old war buddy of his, I think, because they mentioned that, but it doesn't really matter. As Rebecca leaves, for some reason, they really don't give an explanation. It's just because. So both of them work together to try to get to Narcos and try to learn what the heck is going on, where we learn that Lyle himself is actually a traitor and is doing something that is, again, not explained. Well, sort of. You see, earlier the game mentioned that MindJacking is a thing that, yeah, we've been doing the entire time, and it doesn't really explain on what the heck to deal with that, and I'm unsure if the plot's doing something with it unironically, and it's just being confusing on that angle, trying to show us that, oh my god, they're being MindJacked, which is actually the plot point, but otherwise it's just here. So Lyle's using the MindJack technology to become somehow able to stop the world's troubles and whatnot, and after getting some help from Rebecca, we're able to push him away, where he's going deeper into Narcos and does something. It really doesn't make any sense, and like, it seems like the FIA is actually joining up with Lyle, but it's really not. Again, I am so confused. So they just say screw it and go after Lyle, where they wreck the place, being like, I'm doing this to save the world, to make the world a better place. And it's like, okay, and we kill him? Well, actually, that's not true. But we defeat him, and then suddenly a cyborg comes in? And I'm like, what? Yeah, this comes out of nowhere, and I'm so done with this game that I really couldn't give a fuck. We kill it, and then somehow Jin goes on something about someone named Emily, and then it's done. We just destroy the thing that's doing all this, and Lyle's not dead, but does a jump, which is just confusing, as it showed earlier that the Wanderer or the MindJack technology was in Jim and then entered Lyle, so I'm unsure if he did this willingly. God, this plot is so stupid. So, okay, I'm gonna try to explain. Emily is Gardner's daughter, the guy who made the MindJack technology, and was trying to make some replicate of her. But Lyle was like caught wind of it and tried to make use of that technology, but Gardner was like, no, I won't let you do that. And Lyle killed him and something. Look, the more I try to explain this, the more confusing it gets, and really, this plot doesn't really have a firm grasp of what's going on to begin with, so I'm just gonna say this. I have a better understanding of Metal Gear Solid as a whole than this entire mess of a game.
At the end of the day, MindJack is a boring game. You literally have no reason to play this. This game is just boring. There is no redeeming qualities about it. There is literally no reason I can ever see for anyone to play this other than to know what never to do when designing a game. And even then, there are way more enjoyable games out there that can teach you the same thing. Next time, we're going to do a Princess Maker game. Though, sort of. I say that, but it is a part of the subgenre with Volcano Princess as a request, as will be our next review after that one being The Four Warriors of Light. Though I've already finished the recording for that. I do that a little too much now. Though it's better to be ahead of your schedule than behind. I'll see you all next time. You all have a good day, and remember, nothing's wrong about thinking about the things you like, or hating, because as long as you know why you hate it, or why you feel the way you do, I'm gonna come up with a better tagline at the end. Stick around for that.